Welcome to Dad's XP. Today we'll be looking at one of the greatest space exploration games ever made, and hopefully having you ask, should a dad play No Man's Sky? My name is CJ, and if you like these reviews and you want to show us Dad some support, make sure you guys like, comment, and sub, as it really helps us out, and we really do appreciate it and love reading all the comments you guys leave for us. So, what is No Man's Sky? Well, No Man's Sky is a science fiction exploration survival game created by Hello Games. It's set in a procedurally generated universe that features over 18 quintillion planets, and that is not an exaggeration, genuinely 18 quintillion, well, actually more than 18 quintillion. Amongst those planets, there are all kinds of starships, beautiful views, monsters, and rare materials for you to discover. The world itself is procedurally generated and allows you to explore to your heart's content. Being that this is a survival and exploration game, the story isn't exactly the highlight of the game, but it by no means is something you should skip over. The story for the game consists of several quest lines that you'll follow in order to get a better understanding of the world around you and your place in it. While all the story is done via text with no voice acting, it does a really good job of making you question your place in the universe, in the game, and out of it, presenting you with, at times, some pretty existential questions about what it means to exist, which might not be for everybody, but for me personally, I found it to be very interesting, and it left me with a lot to think about after I was done with it. Aside from that, playing through the story will allow you to access some of the content that they've added over the years, as this game released back in 2016 and has been getting regular updates ever since. And one of the best things about that is every time they add new content to the game, not only is it free, but they add tons and tons of cool features to the game. Speaking of features, one of the things that I find most interesting about No Man's Sky is the fact that every time they release a new patch, we'll get what's called an expedition. Expeditions have you play as a fresh character to play through a more curated version of No Man's Sky with clear objectives that fit an overarching story, and typically based around the most recent patch features. Once completed, that file can be played like any other save file, or you can collect all the cool cosmetic rewards like pets, ships, and weapons on any of your other save files, and as many times as you want. One of my favorite things about No Man's Sky is just the fact that it is so visually varied. The game is absolutely beautiful, and with the most recent patch that they released, all of the worlds that are procedurally generated have been given some new tech and sort of freshened up. I mean, the possibility for planets in this game is truly endless. You can find planets that are essentially a glitch in the system and have all sorts of anomalies that I can't even begin to describe to you, but you've got your firestorm planets, your desert planets, your ocean planets, your chromatic planets where everything is literally just in like a chroma filter. It's very bizarre. You have your tropical planets, all sorts of things. Like pretty much anything you can think of, it exists. And that sort of leads me into the thing that I think makes No Man's Sky so special is the fact that this might genuinely be the only modern game where you could be the first person to discover something. We live in an age where most games, guides are out, how to do this, where to find this, how to get that. You would never really get to be the first person to find something or find something genuinely exciting that nobody else has seen. But in No Man's Sky, you can. Amongst 18 quintillion planets, you are very likely to be the first person to discover many things in this game. In fact, there are many things in this game that no player will ever actually see given how many planets and galaxies exist in the game. And something about that is just so exciting. It takes me back to being a kid and playing Pokemon and thinking that I was the first person to ever find Articuno. It's just one of those things that in this day and age, with how games are made and how games are covered, it's sort of impossible to get that feeling back, and this game manages to do it, and I think it's something really special. From a gameplay perspective, it's really hard to narrow down all the things you could talk about, but mainly what you'll be doing is going from planet to planet, gathering materials. You could be hunting for a special kind of starship as they come in different classes, and there are different types of them, some that are faster, some that are better at combat, things like that. There is also alien life forms you can interact with and gain reputation with. You can do trading, like intergalactic trading, things like that. The world really is your oyster in this game. What you want to do with it is truly up to you, whether you want to build an awesome base or you want to get a giant freighter ship and build your base in space so it can move around with you. That's one of the things that you could do that I think is just insanely awesome. And the way that your ship just breaks the atmosphere when you leave a planet or when you're going onto a planet is just something that you just have to you just have to play it to experience, because it's truly awesome, and there are a lot of other space games out there that really miss the mark with that particular feature, and I think that's something that this game does exceptionally well. Controls for this game feel very good, as expected for a game of this caliber. It also has nice access to some accessibility options, which is always a huge plus. Now, another thing I would like to talk about is this game does have the ability to be played in VR. Now, there is nothing inherently wrong with the VR in this game. It is good, it's fun, it's exciting, especially when you're flying the ship, but it is one of those games that you kind of want to play it. It's a more long format game, and I find that VR titles tend to be better as a short and sweet experience, and the long-term format for VR is definitely for a much smaller audience. I don't mind it as much, but I think that some people will find that it's just much easier to sit down with a controller or a keyboard and mouse and just enjoy the game that way. But that being said, if you do have access to VR, I highly recommend you at least try it in VR, because it is truly just an insane experience. I don't think that would be my preferred way to play, but you would be doing yourself a disservice by not at least trying it. Moving on from that, I want to talk about the replay value for this game, because I do genuinely think that it has a ton of replay value. So, the fact that they release patches, I don't know, 3 to 5 patches a year with a just giant amount of content in them, just allows you to come back to the game over and over and over again. And with expeditions being the way that they are, it allows you to start fresh constantly. Every time I come back to the game, I like to start a new file and just re-experience all the stuff that they've added to the game. But if you're not the kind of person that likes to do that, jumping into the game from your previous save is always an option, and it usually allows you to jump into a lot of the new stuff right away. Plus, like I mentioned earlier, this game does not charge for any of the content that they add to the game, so once you buy it, you own it. There is no DLC. You never have to pay another dime, making this one of the best bang for your buck titles that you could possibly buy, in my opinion. At this point, you might be wondering about the multiplayer functionality for No Man's Sky, and let me just tell you this. You can play this game multiplayer or single player, and it really doesn't matter, because you can swap back and forth between the two at any point in time. Not only can you swap back and forth between single player and multiplayer at any time with the same save, but if you're playing on, like, say, with easier settings, and your friend is playing on, like, hardcore, you guys can still play together, and your settings don't affect each other. And I think features like this are really important for dads, especially because, you know, if you want to play with your kids and you want them to sort of have an easier time of the game, you can drop the settings down real low, make it a little easier for them, but you could still keep a challenge for yourself, which I think is really cool. And I think with all that being said, my final score for No Man's Sky is a 9 out of 10. I think that this is truly one of the most ambitious and one of the most well-executed games that has been made in the last decade, and I just can't wait to see what they do with it. So I hope you enjoyed this Should a Dad Play, and if you'd like to see more, leave us a like, a comment, make sure you drop a sub so you can get more reviews for dads like you by dads like us.